Well, as you can see, I'm still working on the Yamaha Virago. I've got the box out here. To bring you up to speed thus far, I've got the motorcycle up to this point, attached the front forks, even though that's not until a little bit later step, but I wanted to be able to set it up on its center stand so that it stands up correctly. I have worked on the base, which was featured in another video, and the bike will actually sit about in this position on the base itself, about like that. And this is where we stand so far. So the next step is going to be this step 15 right here that I'm going to work on in this video, which is just the headlights and the turn signals that go on the front. That's step 15. And we start that by, we've got our clear parts. And this is the headlight right here. And these are the turn signals right here. And yeah, I'm going to try to get this up a little closer. As you can kind of see, I've already colored the turn signals with a clear orange. So those are ready. And then we get out, the first thing we do is the headlight bucket, which is a basic, simple 2 pieces. Actually 3 if you include the clear headlight part. And we trim, once again, we trim the nibs off from where it was attached to the tree. Just use the X-Acto knife and kind of smooth that off a little bit. Try not to scrape a lot of the chrome off. Which I know that can be a bit of a pain sometimes. Now this is going to fit together. It's got a little nib where that actually slips into place. But once again, we need to scrape some chrome off. And we just take the X-Acto knife and go around the edge so that the glue will provide a decent bond. And then we do the same to the other piece where the glue is actually going to connect and hold it in place. And yes, there are some people that say, well, you don't need to scrape the chrome anymore because you've got the super glues available. And that's true to a degree, but I guess I'm a little bit old school. And I still like to do the scraping for a little bit better bond. I'm using the Tamiya liquid cement so that it'll flow in to where I want the bond to take place. And that's, we'll set that to dry before I put the clear piece in. And then we get our turn signal piece. And we snip that off its tree. And again, we do the little trimming of the little nibs. And we also get our clear pieces off. for the turn signals. And again, we trim those little nibs off just a hair. And on the inside is where you're going to want to scrape a little bit of chrome to provide a bond for that clear piece to grab onto. You don't necessarily have to go all the way around on the inner piece here. You just need to get enough to provide a good bond for that clear piece to be able to hold on to. And then we place these clear orange pieces that I've dyed, well, didn't dye, I actually painted it the clear orange for the turn signals on the front of the bike. And then once again, we take our liquid cement, put a little drop in there, and then we put another little drop in here. And we've got our assembly kind of ready to go. And again, on the clear piece for the headlight bucket, we still want to scrape a little bit of chrome off that inner lip to provide a bond. And if you don't think that I've given that enough time to dry, that glue evaporates incredibly quick. So that, as a rule, it's pretty good. The problem you run into is with painted areas, is touching it too soon after you've done the paint. And here I'm trimming up the clear plastic piece so that it will fit. And once again, we've got there's a small, very small little nib, and this is so that the headlight will line up. And then you place this onto where the little nib is at, which is kind of hard to see because of the chrome. You just have to kind of finagle it in, and it'll go. And what I like about this Tamiya cement is that when it dries, unlike the super glues and the tester's glue that some of us used over the years, it may stain the clear plastic just a little bit where you have touched it, but it doesn't fog it completely out so that it looks like a big ass stain on the model itself. And then we want to mount the headlight onto the turn signal piece. And again, for that, we have to scrape some chrome. Where the headlight's going to attach to the piece. And on the back side, this is going to attach to the bike here. So you want to scrape, I go ahead and scrape that chrome now, even though it's not going to go on the bike for a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and get that scraped. Now when you attach the headlight, after scraping the chrome, you want to make sure that you get the top nib here orientated correctly so that when you do go to attach it to the bike, it's not going to be upside down. So once we got that orientated right, we take the headlight and set it into place on its little spot there. It does have another little nib. And then we put some of the Tamiya cement onto the back side and let that run into place. And hold that in place for a few seconds while it gives it a chance to set up. And that's the headlight assembly. Pretty simple, straightforward. The next thing I'll work on is the speedometer assembly, which is going to be these two pieces right here. And there's a little bit more detail. So I'll get into that in the next little video that I'll do in this particular step. So that'll be coming up. And I hope you enjoyed this. Once again, thanks for watching. Welcome back to part 2 of step 15. And in this video, I'll be going over the speedometer and tachometer assembly. And this is, it's 4 simple pieces, but there's a lot more to it than that. We've got the back part of the assembly, the front part of the assembly, and these 2 decals that'll go in. And we'll get into the decals after a little bit. But the first thing we do is these parts go together like so. And as I've said many times, that you trim off the little nibs, and as always, we scrape off the chrome where the glue is going to connect. And again, this comes from the old school days of the pre-super glue era, when you had tester cement, and that was pretty much your choice. You didn't have the tons of choices available like today with the different glues and the thicknesses. You've got the gel, you've got the thin, you've got the fast setting, you've got sprays that you can spray on super glue that'll set it faster. We didn't have that option back in the day. It was either testers or you didn't build a model. And that's not knocking their product or anything, because it worked and would last for a long time. You just had to wait a while, sometimes a long while. If you got too much glue, sometimes it would warp the plastic. Actually just melt the plastic and you'd end up with a blob. Hence the name where glue bomb probably comes from. So I'm going to place this onto its little area right here. Get that little thingy off of there. And I'm going to take it to my liquid cement. And get it along in the cracks so that it'll flow down like always. We press that into place. And while that's drying, I'm going to prep out and get the, there's 5 small little raised areas right here, and they need to be painted. So, and this is to designate what they're used for. And for the first color, I'm going to use Sublime Green, and this is for the headlight indicator when you have it on high beams. And to do that, I'm going to use a toothpick. Just get a little drop on here. And I'm simply going to touch. And I know it's not much in the video, and it's very, very hard to see. But I'll shoot some close-ups, pictures. And there you'll be able to see a little bit clearer. Then we're going to switch over to the blue. And this is the neutral indicator light. And the reason I'm using vice grips to open these bottles up of paint is I don't use these on a regular basis. So the caps have a tendency of getting very sticky. So I actually have a couple of different sizes. I've got the big one, and I have a couple of these much smaller ones, depending on the situation. I use both, and that's why there's 2 sets here. And again, I'm going to take and just touch the blue. And I'm going to go down here and just lightly touch this raised. Just enough to leave a little bit of paint on there. And then the next color is the red. And once again, I'm going to take the toothpick and touch. Just a slight little bit of paint. And just touch. Always put the cap back on. I don't know how many times I've set an open bottle of paint, thinner, whatever, off to the side, and then ended up knocking it over. And yes, even today I still do that, and occasionally will forget my own little saying about putting the caps back on, and that's what happens. These are the turn signal indicators, so they're going to be orange. And again, I'm just going to touch. Oh, got a little too much. Now that'll show up in the pictures, but it won't be so pronounced on the model, because this will be kind of hidden away under the, not under, but close to the handlebars. So while that's drying a little bit, I'm going to do the decals a little bit different. You're supposed to take these and put them in water. And apply them without the backing. So I'm going to cut these off first. And then what I'm going to do is, now you have two here. One is the tachometer and the other is the speedometer. And the speedometer goes on the left and the tachometer goes on the right. And that's just to appease. I want to make sure that I get them in the right spots on the model itself, because if I happen to enter any model contest, you always have what are called rivet counters, who are more concerned with things being deadly accurate, and sometimes they won't even bother to look at the other details that are added. So I've cut the speedometer out, and then I'm going to cut the tachometer out. And I'm doing both of these at the same time because I'm waiting for that paint to get nice and set up. It doesn't take long for one droplet of paint to get good and set up. And you'll see why I wanted to make sure of that. In the next step, yeah, it's kind of tedious, I know. You know, you guys can leave comments and stuff. Comments, criticisms, suggestions, whatever, in the comments. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. And I just had that right here because I just cut it off. I've already lost the tachometer. That's not a good thing to do. Well, okay. I'll look for that in a minute. I'll go ahead and do this so I can end the video. And then I'll look for the missing piece. So what I'm going to do is, where the speedometer is going to go, I'm going to just scrape a little bit of the chrome. Once again, this is to provide a good surface for the glue. And then I'm not going to use the Tamiya cement. I'm going to use just a little touch of the Gorilla Glue. And I'm just going to get a little drop on the end of this toothpick. I'm going to drop this right on there. And then here's where it gets just a little bit tricky, because you want to make sure that this piece is orientated correctly. So I take the X-Acto, press it onto it. That one's not going to do it. Must not be quite sharp enough. And I'm going to make sure that the orientation is correct. And I'm going to press this into place. And hold that for a few seconds. And then while that's doing its thing and drying a little bit, I'm going to try to get this to set up on this toothpick so that it's a little more level. And then I'm going to take just a drop of, or two, of Elmer's glue. And I'm going to place the Elmer's glue over the entire thing and get that nicely filled in. Now when this dries clear, it's going to look more like a glass covering over that speedometer and over the tachometer. Hopefully I can find that decal. So we'll be letting that dry to clear, and I'll get pictures of this and post it up in a slideshow following this video. So I hope you enjoyed it, and once again, thanks for watching.